Hello there, friends. It just so happens that animals only make friends with their own species or similar species. There have been instances where a cat and a puppy got along. However, there have been instances of completely unusual interactions that are difficult to believe in. It's actually quite entertaining to watch how these animals try to communicate with one another, and it's intriguing to try to figure out why they have this relationship. So today I'll tell you about the Tang family and their friends, Ott. They not only met at the zoo under unusual circumstances, but they also formed a strong bond. And, in fact, you'll soon find out what happened. A small Tang family, including a 24-year-old male named Yuja, his partner, 15-year-old Ser, and their 4-year-old son Baroni were rightfully considered the stars of the Paris-Daza Zoo, which is located 60 kilometers from Brussels, Belgium's capital. Every day, hundreds of visitors gathered around the huge monkey's enclosure, and because their intelligence is considered to be the most human-like, the orangutan family, like people, was very flattered by such attention. So, in response to admiration, the family didn't hesitate to show themselves and all the attention, even flirting with the visitors by winking at them and hugging them. Overall, these shaggy guys were happy with their lives until one day everything changed. The problem is that the global pandemic forced the zoo's administration to close it to visitors. Thus, in an instant, UJA, Saudi, and even little Banny lost their main source of joy, the constant attention they had grown accustomed to. When the number of visitors reached zero, the caretakers noticed that the monkeys had lost their appetite and their mood had become extremely aggressive. Furthermore, the trio simply hid in the cave and refused to leave. Overall, it was clear that the family was distraught. They were fading in front of the caretaker's eyes. It's strange even talking about it because no one knew how important people were to them, particularly their communication. The zookeeper named Matthew realized that if things continued in this manner, it would be nearly impossible to reintroduce the monkeys to their previous way of life, which meant only one thing. They were going to die soon. Something had to be done, and the Carters initially tried to keep them company on their own. But the smart primates understood what was going on because they were familiar with the workers. Even so, it did make a difference, but they were still depressed. When the first attempt to cheer up the orangutan family failed, the zookeeper had a brilliant idea. The next day, the wise man gave the order to construct an artificial river that would run through the primate family's enclosure. Its beginning, however, was purposefully placed in the enclosure with the zoo's most mischievous animals, the otters. As soon as the canal was finished, the Little Rascals set out to investigate the cool invention. As a result, the surprised little animals ventured down the river to see where it would lead them. It should be noted that these nimble creatures will not let anyone around them get bored anytime soon. They ended up in the monkey enclosure. No one knew how the first meeting would go or whether they would end up as friends or not, but everyone hoped for the best, and that's exactly what happened when the strange visitors landed in the enclosure of the IEG tanks. The first to run out to meet them was the curious Baroni, who had never seen anything like them before. To the delight of the zoo workers who witnessed this encounter, Baroni appeared to be a little concerned about the fact that there were so many otters and he was alone. But then he stretched out his arms towards them, and one of the otters approached Baroni, and they began to sniff each other. After a few minutes of getting to know each other and determining that neither of them was dangerous, they began to play. It was simply incredible, said the zoo workers, but there was more when they noticed an unidentified guest next to their son, Eugen, and quickly rushed to help him out. They did, however, get to meet the otters 5 minutes later, which was no less heartwarming. Instead of returning Baroni to the cave, the huge orangutans not only let him play with their visitors, but even joined him in order to get to know the newcomers better. A few minutes later, the otters were already running up and down the huge and hairy back of Yuja, and the monkey's mood quickly improved. Moving on, I'd like to say that day marked the beginning of a wonderful friendship. Two entirely different species of animals with diametrically opposed interests. I made new friends. They began to spend almost all of their time together almost immediately after meeting. They primarily engaged in catch and hide and seek. Otters, according to Matthew, hide under large tree trunks or wooden structures, and little Baroni searches the enclosure for them. They sometimes come over just to tease him. It appears to be children playing on a playground. Older animals spend their time with adult orangutans, who pick them up carefully with a long paws and simply let them run on their hairy back. The Belgian zoo's photographers can't keep up with the animals, but the pictures they do get are quite amusing. A bulletin board has recently been placed at the zoo entrance, and among other things, there are pictures of the wise-looking Yuja surrounded by otters who seem to be closely watching him as he is feeding their friends from her hand, and little Baroni is running around the enclosure with. After learning about Matthew's brilliant idea, the journalists wanted to speak with him to learn how the lives of the zoo's main celebrities had changed. The caretaker claims that he is still improving the enclosure by adding logs, trees, and even plants to the artificial river. After dealing with the Orangutan family's depression, the caretaker was able to develop their intelligence through games, puzzles, and even riles for primates in captivity. Two factors are extremely important: the enclosure's size and the organization of their vital activities. This means that orangutans, who share 97% of their DNA with humans, must be entertained, occupied, challenged, and kept mentally, emotionally, and physically busy at all times. The idea for an artificial canal came about by chance, but no one doubts it now. It was a fantastic one because interacting with other species was extremely beneficial to the Earth. Furthermore, recognizing that the decision to combine two enclosures was a success, the zookeepers decided to test the concept on penguins and seals, kangaroos and pelicans, giraffes and ostriches. Even though quarantine measures have been relaxed and visitors can return to the zoo, this does not mean that the friendship between the IGA tanks and the Otter is over. Yuja, Sari, and Bani are still the stars of the zoo, but they are now. The Tang family even attempted to swim to the Otters, but this was not possible so far. In the meantime, the Otters spend the majority of their time in the orangutan enclosure. Upon learning of such an unusual relationship between two completely different types of animals, thousands of local residents rushed to witness this miracle for themselves, as nothing like this had ever occurred before. As you can see, even the most dissimilar animals can make friends and find common ground in a crisis situation. Many of us can probably learn a thing or two from these incredible creatures. How do you feel about Matthew's plan to make Ragu, ANGs, and Otters friends? Don't forget to let us know if you like the video's main characters. That'll do it for today. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.